Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Boardroom, where, as always, we are having conversations with some of Malta's leading business minds to understand where we should be putting our attention on the economy. We've got a very interesting topic and interviewee for you today, but first, as always, we are live on Facebook right now. So if you'd like to join the conversation, please do add your comments or your questions below. If not, then this will be streamed back on who'swho.mt, Malta's leading business portal. Now, as I said, very interesting and important topic today. We're going to be talking about green energy, the Green Deal, and understanding how green business needs to go in order for it to continue to be a sustainable success. And to help me to understand that today, allow me to introduce today's guest. We have with us today Patrick Spiteri Staines. He is the Managing Director of T4B Services Limited. Welcome, Patrick. Looking forward to a very interesting conversation with you this morning on a very, very important topic, the topic of green business. But first, Patrick, to introduce you, you are an electrical engineer, you have a master's in sustainable energy, you are a building energy assessor, and you are a registered energy auditor. That's a lot of things, all very clearly related to energy and the energy sector. And Patrick, maybe we can start by telling me a little bit about you and a little bit about the company that you manage, T4B.
Yes, thank you, Joe. T4B was set up in 2008. T4B actually stands Technology for Buildings. Way back then, we realized that a lot of energy is being used in buildings, both in terms of heating, cooling, heating of water, and the way an industrial buildings also, depending on the processes that are involved. And we started focusing on how this energy can be reduced and used more efficiently. T4B offers solutions to do this, both in domestic buildings and also in industrial sector.
Okay, a very important topic, isn't it, Patrick, when it comes to how we're going to keep businesses sustainable going forward? I mean, we'll talk a little bit now about the Green Deal, the European Green Deal. Some of our viewers will know what that Green Deal is all about, but some won't. So perhaps you can explain a little bit about what that Green Deal is, how it came about, and why it is so pertinent to be talking about it at the moment.
Yes, the Green Deal is a result of a number of factors. The largest or most prominent one is that of global warming. Something which, up till quite recently, a lot of the larger countries were doubting whether it was actually happening or not. I think in the last year or so, we are very convinced that this is actually a reality. We are seeing global warming, we're seeing the effects of global warming. And we also know from a scientific point of view what are the causes of this global warming. A lot of this global warming, which is creating a lot of harm all over the world, and if unchecked, will result in massive loss of land, displacement of populations, and a lot of harm, and both for people on a physical sense and also economic sense. The Green Deal is an answer to this. It's Europe's strategy to reduce carbon emissions and make Europe more sustainable, both economically, but even more so environmentally. In such a way, not only do we help reduce the global warming potential, but we make Malta and also Europe less reliant on fossil fuels. A very simple situation that has arisen very recently is the increase in energy prices in Europe as a result of gas, which is piped from Soviet bloc countries, and so a lot of the energy in Europe is actually in the hands of countries outside of Europe, and this is not a very good situation. Despite this, Europe has a very ambitious target, and Malta forms part of this. So we look to help the country, as part of the European Union, attain the objectives of the Green Deal in reducing the use of fossil fuels, reducing the negative effects of pollution, and using our energy in a more efficient manner. Because we all know today that without energy, our economies cannot survive.
Absolutely. And zeroing in on Malta just for a minute, how is the European Green Deal expected to help Malta specifically? When we look at Malta, obviously we're a tiny place. Our environment is heavily impacted. We feel every impact, whether it's our air quality, whether it's the lack of greenery, whether it's the ongoing construction. How is the Green Deal tangibly going to help with that?
The Green Deal is very important for Malta because we are a very delicate economy. And also, our environment is very delicate. We're a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean. We're not connected to the mainland except through travel, and every kind of travel generates use of fossil fuels, be it by plane or by ship. We have to import all our energy. We have a very small percentage of energy which we generate locally. So we're in a very delicate position. By following the direction of the Green Deal, Malta can become more energy self-sustainable. Therefore, we can survive impacts that are happening in other countries in a better way. We can become more environmentally sustainable because the effect of power generation on the island, even fuels used in cars, these all have negative results on the environment, which we all feel, we're all beginning to see, affects our health, it affects our well-being, and the Green Deal addresses this and gives a very, very good direction, which I think in the case of Malta is very important that we follow.
Absolutely. Now, your speciality, of course, is buildings, right? Related to energy efficiency of buildings. Perhaps you can tell us a little more about how that's related to the Green Deal and how construction going forward could be made more sustainable.
So, buildings are very important because it's where everyone lives and where we perform our work, operations, our industry. However, buildings are also where a lot of the energy is used. Up to between 40-60% of all the energy in Malta is being consumed by buildings in the form either of electrical energy or sometimes also in the form of fuels, boilers used in industry, LPG used for heating, etc. However, buildings, if constructed in a traditional manner, have a lot of losses of heat or absorption of the heat during the summer months, therefore needing a lot of cooling. That is all energy which can be avoided if one had to invest in more passive means of insulation. So buildings going forward, there already are regulations, these regulations have to be increased, are looking towards reducing losses. So what energy we do use, we don't lose a lot of this to the environment. A simple example would be if you had to stay in a room, open your window and put on your air conditioner. Your air conditioner is trying to cool your room and part of outside. That is a waste. Your window may be shut, but if it's single glazed, you are losing your cooling or gaining heat through your window. If it's double glazed, then you have more insulation. This also applies to walls. It applies to many elements in the building, which can make our buildings more sustainable. Part of the Green Deal is also a drive towards zero energy buildings. That is, buildings which can not consume energy from an outside source, but either generate enough energy themselves for their own use, which is potentially a target, although not possibly to attain in all sectors, but is possibly to attain in certain areas. For instance, buildings which are being built with a very high element of insulation, together with PVs and solar thermal for water heating, can potentially be self-sufficient and not have to be connected to the grid or any other energy supply, except maybe as an emergency, and have their own energy being generated. This is the target. This is the target that a lot of buildings need to head towards. We are seeing this happening, but maybe it's happening too slowly. Unfortunately, we tend to be, in the building sector, tends to be a bit old-fashioned. Changes take a long time to take effect. And we unfortunately now have the global warming deadline, which is actually happening, which means we have to accelerate this. We don't have the luxury of doing things slowly.
And so if you were talking directly to somebody in the construction sector at the moment, or perhaps somebody who's investing in a property at the moment, what are the tangible things they can do to improve their energy efficiency and make them perhaps more aligned with the goals of the Green Deal?
Definitely thermal insulation of the outside envelope. This was in walls, ceilings, floors, and apertures is a very important factor. The use of renewables such as photovoltaic panels or solar thermal panels on roof space is also an important factor. There are a number of things that can be done to attain a building which is not going to lose its energy easily, yet people inside the building can have very comfortable conditions. We are not saying that people inside a zero energy building or a building with low energy use is going to be uncomfortable, rather the opposite. We believe that the levels of comfort can be even better than what they are today. Here we're talking about ventilation, for instance, so that you have a ventilation system which does not take your cooling out and bring in hot air, but exchanges the air which is going in and coming out so that you retain some of your cooling or keep some of the heating out. There are many systems which are available today. There are solutions even for energy use in industry, which is also a big consumer of energy. And there are solutions which can reduce substantially the energy use. There is a very close link between energy generation through renewables and energy use. If you consume your energy in an efficient manner, you need to produce less. So whereas today we are looking at percentages below 20, or in Europe below 20 and in Malta below 10 of energy, renewable energy in terms of our energy use, if we use less, or what we use we don't waste, therefore automatically the percentage of what we need from renewables increases. The ultimate goal is to have it complete. In other words, to have all the energy we need coming from renewables. This is a very difficult target to achieve, especially for a small island like Malta, but not impossible. And I think if we want to be sustainable long term, really sustainable, we need to look at strategies at a domestic or granular level, industrial level, and even national level to achieve this. And in doing so, then we have peace of mind that no matter what is happening in other areas of Europe or the world, prices of fuel oil or gas are not going to affect our economy. We are seeing this happening already in Europe. Prices of products are increasing dramatically because the price of energy has increased. Price of energy because most of the energy is being generated from fossil fuels. This is the one of the key factors. I think if today someone even on an individual level receives his water and electricity bill and starts saying, "Oh wow, this is high," he needs to see what can he do to reduce his energy use, but also replace some of that energy from renewables. And a number of things that need to be done, not only with regards to the building envelope, but also with regards to the building services within the building: air conditioning, ventilation, heating of water, heating in winter. All these need to be looked at in a holistic manner to achieve a situation where buildings use less energy and they use it in the most efficient manner.
I guess one of the things, and of course, all of that sounds incredibly logical. It sounds like something we should be doing right now. Why didn't we do it yesterday? I guess some business people watching might be thinking, might have cost worries, feeling like the upfront investment is going to be a challenge for them to be able to follow through on, or perhaps, when are they going to see the return on their investment for renewables? So what can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So, no, basically, yes, everything comes with a cost. Apart from the fact that we many times don't factor in the environmental cost in our monetary or fiscal costings. However, there are also advantages. A building which uses less energy is also of higher value. As energy costs are increasing, that value increases dramatically. Buildings which have a situation where they are net zero energy will in the future have a higher net value to the people buying them or purchasing them or owning them than buildings which have a high energy use. There is also a number of aspects where there is aid coming from the government, which is partly coming from the EU, where investments in energy efficiency can be helped. There is a scheme by Malta Enterprise, for instance, for industry, where energy efficiency investments can be subsidized from between 30 to 50%, and this is given as a grant. There are loans which are partly upheld by the European Investment Bank, which are now being locally supplied to people who are interested from local banks, which offer subsidized interest rates on investments in buildings where their debt investment is going towards reducing the energy consumption or increasing the energy efficiency on the building. With regards to renewables, there are subsidies which are given out from the government through feed-in tariffs or through schemes for private individuals or for large installations, where they are helping reduce the return on investment. So these projects become more fiscally interesting and also give the investors a very good return on their investment over a longer period of time. So there are a lot of things which are being done, and all these are, I will go back to our original topic, which is the Green Deal. These are all filtering through from the European Union down to national authorities and national funds in order to stimulate the drive towards a green economy, an economy which is sustainable environmentally, but even more so economically, because Europe realizes that the economic aspect is as important as the environmental aspect.
And so let's stop for a moment and sort of say there's a business out there, they want to make change, they're about to start a new project, but they are worried about the environmental impacts of it. Where do they start? Where do they start assessing the long-term benefits, the environmental benefits versus the initial outlay that they're going to have to make? Where do they go for advice?
Okay, this is basically where energy auditing comes in. Energy auditing can be done not only on an existing building, an existing asset, but also on a design building, a design asset, where one is preparing for a new project. So one can envisage the energy use, one can envisage the costs of various elements in the building, including the equipment, and the amount of energy that they are going to be using, and compare this with more efficient or equipment which allows you to produce the output that you require, but with the use of less energy. That increase in cost can be estimated, the savings can also be estimated, and returns on investment can be calculated. So even at a design stage, one can have a clear view on the investment in energy efficiency and renewables and the return that this will give the company, the business.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. And let's shift focus just for a minute onto COP26, which took place recently. There was a lot of lead up to COP26. Of course, it was an international conference, summit, event that brought together leaders of the world to try to make genuine progress on moving the needle forward to, how should we say, eliminate the worst of climate change damage going forward. Do you think it has helped? What do you think has happened there?
Well, in COP26, we have seen a number of positive things, that assessments are going to happen yearly, not every 3 or 5 years. More countries are have confirmed and have promised to form part of the targets. The negative points is that not all these countries have done so. There are some large countries who have not joined. They are very notable that they were not part of the COP26. And they are also contributing to global warming. So although we're all living on one blue planet, this blue planet is turning yellow and gray, unfortunately, and not everyone is doing his fair share to stop this and to reverse this. But looking positively, Europe is very strong. Europe is one of the leading groups which is pushing forward for targets on COP26. There are very aggressive targets which are filtering through on the European Green Deal. And this is positive, because if Europe becomes sustainable, that means our closest economic group, which we form part of, will also be sustainable, and we can look forward rather than with apprehension, but with peace of mind that environmentally and economically the situation will improve. The pressure needs to be exerted and is being exerted on those countries which are for the time being remaining outside these targets, or not adhering or not joining for these targets in a comprehensive and determined manner. Hopefully, they will do so over the next few years, because something that not many people realize is that although global warming is targeted we are going to try to keep it to less than 1.5 degrees. In Europe, it's already over 2. So 1.5 degrees is the average global temperature. In certain areas of the world, we are already experiencing higher average temperatures in certain regions. So this is worrying, because we are seeing glaciers melting. We are seeing, and this has a domino effect, which can affect certain regions more than others. We are hoping that what is done in Europe will be sufficient for at least the European situation to improve over the next millennia. And something which I would like to add here is that when it comes to buildings, when one builds, it's not a temporary situation, but that building stands for decades, sometimes centuries. That building, it's important, is designed in such a way as to use the least amount of energy, because it's going to be around for a very long time.
Thank you. Okay, Patrick, let's sort of round up and look to the future. You know, what would be your advice, business person to business person, citizen to citizen? You know, what would you tell the people of Malta that they can focus on and the action that they can take, based, of course, off your expertise, and perhaps also sort of looking wider at where we hope Malta can go environmentally?
Well, essentially, I think everyone needs to focus on how they're using energy, how they're using water, and identify waste. Reduce that waste, look how they can diminish that waste, and use what is available in the most efficient manner. This is not rocket science. In some cases, it just means not allowing water to run when you are washing your teeth, or allowing water systems to leak constantly without checking on them, or switching off lighting, or using low energy lighting. In some cases, it's more sophisticated. It's using equipment which helps your air conditioning work more efficiently. It's shading your apertures, not to allow the sunlight to penetrate and heat up excessively the inside of your building. But there are many things that, if everyone is going to pull their bit of weight, I believe that the overall result will be good. It will begin to reach targets which are quite ambitious. However, the benefit is going to be for us and for our children, who are going to have a better world to live in, more environmentally and economically sustainable.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, we can't argue with that, and some really great tangible advice in there for our viewers to put into action. Thank you, Patrick, so much for being with me today on The Boardroom. Great conversation. And as always, to those of you watching us from the office or from at home, lovely to have you with us on The Boardroom, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you.